So this is Rafah. I am now in Rafah city, which is currently the most densely populated city, the most densely populated area in the coastal enclave, as now Rafah is actually housing more than 1.5 million people. 300 of its own residents and more than 1.2 people from those who are displaced, who evacuated their homes in northern Gaza and middle Gaza and came to take shelter in the supposed to be actually a green area, a green zone, a safe zone for Palestinians. But over the past weeks, we have been reporting the repeated Israeli airstrikes on the city of Rafah. Actually, 2 days ago, the Israeli forces launched an operation on Rafah city, killing more than 100 people. Most of them are women and children, in a series of Israeli airstrikes on northwest Rafah. And northwest Rafah is actually where most of the refugee camps are now. Palestinians set most of their tents and started the new refugee camps or displaced camps in those areas in northwest Rafah, in places like the Ashabura refugee camp, Al Junaina refugee camp, Musabbih, the Azhur neighborhood. All of these areas that are filled with displaced people were under Israeli heavy strikes over the past 2 days. This is talking about the situation here in Rafah. What is happening in Rafah lately is actually pushing hundreds of Palestinians to evacuate out of Rafah. But again, we are seeing a small number, a small percentage of the people actually leaving Rafah to take shelter in other places in Middle Gaza. The reason why the majority is not leaving Rafah is because two main reasons. The first one is actually they have no more options left. Most of the people who are displaced in Rafah came from North Gaza, and North Gaza is now isolated for more than 3 months. The North Gaza have been isolated from the rest of the Gaza Strip. So technically those displaced people cannot go back to their homes, and it is very hard for them to find a shelter or even a home to rent in middle Gaza. The second most important reason is actually people have some hope. People do actually hope that there will be a near future ceasefire, a truce that will come to effect here in the Gaza Strip, and so that's why they are actually delaying their movement outside of Rafah, because every day they do think that they are coming closer to a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Especially that now there is intensive talks brokered by Egypt, Qatar and the United States to try and implement this ceasefire on the ground. But apparently both sides, Hamas and Israel, they have their own conditions, and they are not open to negotiate some of the conditions. Like, for example, Hamas proposed big names of Palestinian prisoners to be allowed out of the Israeli prisons in exchange of the hostages. However, Israel from its side refused some of these big names of the Palestinian prisoners. At the same time, Hamas wants to open the road to northern Gaza, where displaced Palestinians will be able to go back to their homes. Israel from its side refused this condition and said there will even be checkpoints between the main roads of Gaza. So yes, there is so many differences, and apparently this will take more time. But as I said previously, Palestinians here on the ground do have hope. Let us move and talk about the humanitarian situation in Gaza. I mean, it is one of the basic struggles here in Gaza, as since the beginning of this Israeli war on Gaza, and Israel imposed a very tightened siege on the coastal enclave, even though the Gaza Strip has been already under more than 15 years old blockade. So yes, the Gaza Strip is now suffering with the lack of clean water, the lack of food, the lack of electricity, fuel, and even the continuous cutting of networks and the connections. Let me just show you around of where I am standing here in Rafah. I am actually in an area called the Ashabura refugee camp, and this place, this tank is supposed to serve around 30,000 Palestinians, of those who are residing in the Ashabura refugee camp. As you can see in the picture, we have children that are trying to fill the water tanks, and next to it we have the plastic tents that were made for some of the refugees. As you can see now, refugees, actually displaced people who evacuated their homes, they have no place, so they are setting their tents on the sidewalks of the streets here in Gaza. And this is actually happening in all of the streets. You would walk around between tents because people have no choices, they have no options, no places to go. Talking about the humanitarian aid, the entry of a humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, Egypt, yes, allows a number of aid trucks to enter the Gaza Strip. Israel also from its side is allowing a number of trucks to enter the Gaza Strip, but here is some numbers to bring you to on the ground here in Gaza. Let's take yesterday, Tuesday, for example. Egypt allowed only 4 trucks of humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip, and they are all filled with cooking gas. From the Israeli side, Israel allowed 73 humanitarian aid trucks to enter the Gaza Strip. And this number is actually very little. It's actually very small to meet the needs of the people. I mean, when we were talking about a humanitarian aid back in November or in December, we used to mention the numbers 100, 200, 300, in some cases, actually in some days. Egypt allowed more than 500 aid trucks to enter the Gaza Strip. However, it is not happening now, even though after the orders of the International Court, the number is supposed to be higher. However, what is happening here actually on the ground is that now there is less aid that is entering the Gaza Strip. We are only talking about 73 humanitarian aid trucks, while the Gaza Strip actually needs 1,000 aid trucks on daily basis just to meet some of the needs of the Palestinian people. As you saw in the previous picture, how children were standing in a long line to fill up the water tanks and bottles to take to their homes. And these children are actually fortunate because they do have this tank filled of clean water. But in some areas around Rafah and also around Middle Gaza, Palestinians are actually forced to go to the sea to collect and to fill up some of the barrels and the tanks with the sea water, so they can be able to wash themselves and even use it for cooking and for drinking. Yes, this is happening in Gaza, and we actually met people, we actually met children who were doing this and who told us that they are using the seawater to drink it, as they have no other option to do. Talking also, and to continue talking about the humanitarian situation here in Gaza, let us mention northern Gaza. Northern Gaza is now isolated from the other parts of Gaza for more than months now, and there is very little humanitarian aid that is entering the Gaza Strip, the north of the Gaza Strip, and we are talking about more than 500,000 people that are still residing in North Gaza. Those people actually did not evacuate their homes since the beginning of the Israeli offensive on the coastal enclave, and they are still there. Those people are suffering. They've reached a point where they are actually grinding the animal feed to be able to bake it somehow and eat and survive. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, a number of cases were reported in northern Gaza of children and people died of hunger, thirst, and also died of diseases, as the Gaza Strip is now already suffering the lack of medicine and medical supplies.